What is up, everybody? How we doing? How we feeling? Welcome to another episode of the Final Vibe podcast. My name is Kevin Reap, and alongside me is my co-host, Andrew White. Andrew, how are you?
I'm feeling amazing. It's a Sunday.
It's a Sunday.
It's a little rainy outside. I love the rain. There might be a nap later.
Yeah, I kind of like these Sunday vibes.
Loving the weather.
If we get a rainy Sunday, I'm on board with it. Anyway, folks, Final Vibe is all about your pursuit of legacy, and this podcast explores all aspects of life and legacy through discussions with all walks of life. And today we have an extremely special guest. And when we first, a few months ago, started talking about a podcast and who we would want to be interviewed on this podcast, who we would want to sit down with, my grandma, Jan Kempker, was the first person I wrote down. And here we are in the late September, episode 17. Episode 17. And we are officially welcoming Jan Kempker, my grandma, to the show. Grandma, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Welcome to the studio. Welcome to Final Vibe.
Jan, I'm so happy that you're on the podcast today.
I'm happy, very happy to be here today.
I've only known you for about 10 minutes, but I feel like we're really good friends, and we're going to have a really fun hour.
Looking forward to it.
Gma, Jan. Oh, let's see. What are the names that we have? Gma, Jan. There's a whole bunch.
Yeah, there's a lot.
For the interview, I'll probably call you Grandma or Jan. We'll
Yeah.
go back and forth.
I will say that I am most a fan of Gma Jan.
It's a pretty
Feels
good
close to home.
Yeah.
And that goes with a lot of people. Like the little kids in the neighborhood call me Gma Jan.
Gma, Jan.
Yeah.
There you go. A
We gotta
grandma
do
to many.
t-shirts. Yeah. That's awesome.
You never know. We could get some cool T-shirts out of this.
That would be sweet.
Sometimes
That would
the
be
best
sweet.
business move is the one that you never thought would be the best business move.
That's right. Okay, so we have a whole lot to talk about in that we aren't really sure what we're going to talk about. We are experimenting live right now with all of our listeners with trying something a little different. Andrew and I have done an episode every week for a few months now, and we've loved every episode that we've done. We're excited about every product that we've created. But as we sit here and look at the future of Final Vibe and the people that we want to talk to, we might start leaning more towards conversational podcast interviews that we'll do. So this will be us dabbling in that. We would love to get your feedback on this episode as well as all of the other episodes that we do as well. So don't ever hesitate, folks. If you think you're a lurker and you just kind of listen, don't hesitate to reach out and give us some feedback.
We'd actually love to hear your feedback.
We would love that. So all of that to say, Grandma, welcome to the show. Let's start with, we talk about Final Vibe and legacy and life. I cannot imagine a better person than a grandmother to talk to about life and legacy. You've seen a lot. You've seen more changes. Everybody talks about change and technology and how many things are moving so fast and how quick time goes, but nobody really can sit at 75 and say those things. So for us to be able to sit at this table and talk about that is extremely exciting for me. Because we've done this before, you and I, in the car many, many times over the years. But for us to do it with microphones in front of our face, I think will be exciting and talk about a way to keep this conversation alive forever. It's pretty exciting for me. So let's start with the basics. A question that I'm definitely not supposed to ask, but I feel like we have to. How old are you?
75.
75. So born in 1945.
Yes. Yep.
Is
Right
that
at
still
the end of the war.
Right at the
World
end
War II.
World War II. Fascinating. Okay. So what, as much as you remember about that 1945 to, let's say, 1960s time frame, how much of that do you remember?
You know, I remember, grew up in the city of St. Louis, a little street, a lot of trees, no air conditioning. So obviously at nighttime, everybody would sit outside, you know, and of course, me being Kevin's grandma, I would go up and down the street and talk to everybody.
Even then.
Little social butterfly.
Yes. I remember that we would bike ride all over everywhere. Your mom would give you a list and you would go down to the corner store and hand them the list, and no money was ever exchanged. I would go visit the shoe man and go into the drugstore and everything. We walked to school, uphill both ways, of course.
Of course.
Yes. We didn't even have a car for a long time, didn't have a television till I was in second grade. I still remember my dad coming to get me from school at lunchtime, brought me home, and there was a television. So I could
Wait,
watch.
and how old were you for the first television?
I was in second grade.
Second
So
grade.
whatever that would be.
So that's like maybe 8 years old.
yeah.
Sounds right.
Could watch Howdy Doody and didn't even have to go across the street to the neighbor's house.
Wow.
It was a new dream come true.
Yeah.
Big time. Where did you go to school?
At first, just to the Catholic school, at first. And then, of course, if anybody's listening is from St. Louis, it's always about where did you go to high school?
Right.
So I went to Rosati Kane, all-girls Catholic high school.
Okay. And that's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still there and thriving is my understanding, yeah. And I do still get together there's 10 of us from high school that we still get together. Actually, during COVID, we meet every week at a park and social distance and talk about grandkids.
That's amazing.
Wow. And have you been doing that for years? I mean, have you been doing that since high school? Or is that a new thing?
We've been doing it not all the way since high school, but say maybe 10 years or so after high school, we started getting together and called it the Girls Club. My son refers to it as the Ann Clan because so many of us have the name Ann in our name, Joanne, Ann, Jan. So he refers to us that way. And now during COVID, we're not going inside each other's homes. So we're meeting outside at a park in St. Louis.
And you guys have traveled together and
Yes.
certainly lived life together over the last many
we have.
decades.
Yeah, we've gone on cruises to Portugal, Colorado. Last year we went to Michigan. Canada.
I think a lot of people listening to our show are probably between the ages of 18 to 40 is kind of what we've guessed a little bit so far. That's a typical time frame where there's a lot of change happening within your friends' lives. They're getting married, they're having kids, they're moving, and it's difficult to maintain a relationship like you had in the past with the friends during that time frame. Obviously, you guys have done an incredible job of that. How important is it to you to maintain those relationships? And do you recommend that other people maintain their own friendships with the people that they've met maybe in high school or college and talk about what that means to you to have those relationships for this many years?
We like to say in high school, we were not the cool girls, we didn't have the boyfriends and everything. And so we remained the girls' club, and the girls who had the boyfriends, now they did not maintain girlfriends. So now they want to be with us. The guys are gone. They want to have somebody to travel with.
Yeah.
They want to be part of our group. And
the tides have turned.
The tides have definitely
They
turned.
spent all their time flirting with the boys while you were developing meaningful relationships.
Very true.
Now they're jealous.
Yes, that is very, very true. It's a very good way to look at it.
So are you letting them on the cruises too, or is it a pretty exclusive clan these days?
The rooms are all full.
Oh, love it. They missed their ticket. Sorry, ladies.
But yeah, we've seen a lot of changes over the years. Two of the ladies moved away, and one of the husbands says that they came back strictly because of the girls' club, that, the wife had to come back. So everybody is now back in the fold, so to speak.
That's awesome.
So let's go back to that because I keep trying to wrap my mind around the fact that you were 15 years old in 1960. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm not a huge history buff, but obviously the 60s and the 70s were extremely unique and brought a lot of different pros and cons and happiness and sadness and anger and great political change. And it was just a lot of good and bad, a lot of people trying to figure out what this new culture with technology and television and famous people, what it was going to be like. And you were like at that age where you were old enough to remember it and grasp it and kind of move alongside it as it was growing and developing. What did you want to do with your life back in that time?
And we do talk about that. And we say, like, the whole Vietnam, we kind of somehow we were getting married, we were having kids. None of our brothers were there. Somehow we just kind of did not get involved in all of that, and all of the strife and turmoil that went along with that. When you're talking about when we were younger, like the 16-year-olds, I mean, rock and roll was coming into being. We were dancing and, going out to the teenage clubs and teen towns and everything. But, and we look at the movies, the one where the three ladies worked for NASA and they were so
Yep.
segregated. And we're like, maybe it's because we were in the Catholic schools. We never saw any of that. We had our friends and we just never, that didn't really enter our lives.
You never saw the segregation? Is that what you
No,
mean? Yeah.
we never did.
What was the demographic like at your school? Was it predominantly white?
It was predominantly white, but I had girls that I went to grade school, African American girls, grade school and high school together, and we never looked at them any differently.
Yeah.
They didn't have to drink out of a certain water fountain or anything like that. I mean,
Sure.
we did not see any of that.
Well, that's good. I
Yeah,
mean,
oh,
you
yeah.
want to hear those things because sometimes you only hear the negative. So it's good to
Yeah.
know that there was some
Yeah.
equality happening and that you didn't experience any of maybe the perceptions that we know now were happening in other places. I'm curious about these nightclubs, to be honest, though.
And that is all I'm going to tell you about them.
Well, that's really disappointing. I'm curious, though, about what people were wearing. What was like the hip fashion for like your 18 to 22-year-old life?
Well, probably for going to work and going out, you had the same shoes that they have now. We called them spike heels back then. I certainly never had a poodle skirt, that they talk about. And we did not have the extensive wardrobe, at least my circle of friends, that the girls have now.
Yeah.
We just had the plain, like a couple of dresses that you wore to work and skirts and blue jeans. And when we were younger, the black and white saddle shoes like you see in the movies. But yeah.
Absolutely. What was the cut on the jeans? Was it like, because I feel like the 70s are known for the bell bottoms, but was that actually what people were wearing?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They were. Yep, they were. And that's something that my daughters laugh about, that I told them that when we started wearing the stretch elastic waist pants, that ruined a whole generation of women. And once again now with the yoga pants, that they need to put those blue jeans back on again with the zippers and the buttons.
Hilarious. So, Jan, what are you saying about leggings? Not a big fan?
No.
A little
no.
too provocative, maybe?
Yeah. Well, for the people that should be wearing them, they're fine.
Oh, well, there you go.
But you still got to remember that that's all stretch. You
Sure.
got to wear blue jeans or whatever, something that zips and buttons.
Totally. Do you think I should be wearing leggings?
Definitely not.
Okay, very good. I thought it was good to get that out of the way.
I just designed some FinalVibe leggings this morning.
FinalVibe male leggings.
They were male leggings.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll show them to you. I'm not saying we're going to sell them. I'm just saying I designed some.
Sure.
It's an option. Okay, so we're kind of building up to your young adulthood. How old were you when you got married?
19.
19. See, that's
Yeah.
and so I know that it's one of the crazy things for me is to look back 75 years ago to what was happening, and I don't want to say normal as if it's not normal now, but
Well, normal for the time.
normal for the time, and you've got to see that change. But it's amazing that you got married at 19.
Yes,
and
it
then
is.
created what you have created in the sense of
Yes.
legacy and family.
Yes.
Talk about dating a little bit when not in a broader sense, because I don't think I want to know that, but dating with Grandpa specifically,
Yeah.
Dennis Kempker. Talk about that when how you guys met and the age that you were.
I guess I met him as soon as I got out of high school. Met him in the summertime at a relative's house. But back then, when you dated, you actually went on a date. The boy would call you up, not necessarily him, but like when I was in high school, they would call you up like on a Wednesday and ask you to go out on Friday night. You actually went somewhere. You went to the show. You went bowling. Nowadays the kids just go out as a big group. I see with my grandkids, they don't really date. But then we actually went out. You go out to eat,
Yeah, one-on-one.
Yes, you did. You went out one-on-one.
What was the first date?
Went to the Cardinals ball game down at the old stadium. And by that, I mean the one on Grand Avenue.
That's a
And-
good first date. Good for Dennis.
Yeah.
That was Bush 1, right? No. Bush.
Oh,
what was it called? It was
the
Sportsman Park?
Sportsman's Park.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it wasn't one-on-one because all of his friends from the country were there, from Mary's home, Missouri, little bitty town. And all of his friends were at the ball game, sitting in the bleachers where they always sat. And when we got there, the bleachers were full. And the lady, I still remember this, the lady at the turnstile let us in. We jumped over the turnstile and went and sat with all of his friends.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
How did you guys meet? Because Mary's home is a small town. Small might be too strong of a word. It's a small town. Population is, what do you think the population is?
100, maybe.
100, yeah. South of Jeff City?
Yes, on the way to Lake of the Ozarks.
On the way to the lake, yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you guys meet when he came from there? And
So my family also comes from that neighborhood, that area around there. And my aunt lived on the farm next to his dad. So my aunt would send the Christmas presents to St. Louis with Dennis because he worked in St. Louis.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I
and
remember
that's
when
how
you
I know.
showed me the house he was born in
Yes.
as you drive into Mary's home.
Yes.
I saw it there just a few months ago.
Not a hospital, a
It's
house.
a house. Speaking of being born in a hospital, you have been involved in, do you have any idea of how many kids you've been involved with that have been born in hospitals? Like, do you have a
Oh.
tally of, and people listening, I don't know if I've even said this yet, but you are a retired nurse. How many
Yes.
years were you a nurse?
I was a nurse for 30 years. I got a very late start. I did not actually graduate from nursing school until I was 39 years old. And that was probably because of all the nightclubs that I was going to in high school.
There were better things to do
Yes,
than study for nursing school.
that's right. So it took me a long time to get back around to what I had always wanted to do, was to go to nursing school. And I was working in a special school district school as the school secretary. And I told some of the young teachers that were my friends that's what I wanted to do. And they said, you can go to nursing school. You can do that. And I'm like, no. When I went to the community college, I taped my parking sticker on my window because I knew I would not make it past the first semester.
Wow.
Oh, Jan, why did you have that mentality?
Because of all the years of going to the nightclubs in high school and not studying.
But the potential was within you.
Yes,
and
it
we
was.
know that because
Yes, it was.
you were then a nurse for 30 years.
For 30 years, yes. And the last 20 of those was doing postpartum nursing with the mothers and the babies. And I always look at little kids and think, I wonder if I took care of them when they were little.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that is a really interesting element of the whole
Yeah.
legacy conversation, because how many people did you interact with in a meaningful way?
Yeah.
And they don't even know.
On their first
And
day
you don't
out.
even know.
yeah. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
So
Yes.
finished nursing school at 39 means that all of your children had already been born.
I had, when
Before
I
that.
graduated from nursing school, I had 3 children. One was in grade school, one was in high school, and one was already in college at that time. And those kids helped put me through nursing school. I say that we had a good work ethic, and we at nighttime would clean an office building. And the kids cleaned toilets. The kids vacuumed that carpet, that it had perfect marks in the carpet. And nobody ever complained, at least to our faces, about going and doing that. And that's what paid for the tuition.
Can we like stop there for a second and elaborate on that?
Yes, I think we should.
So I think one sort of stereotype of former generations is that we always say they knew what a good work ethic is. And one of the critiques of our generation is that we just don't know what good, honest work is. Do you feel like that's true?
Sadly, yeah.
I mean, I do too.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that in a bad way, but you just don't hear really that many stories of you saying that the kids worked and they vacuumed and they cleaned the toilets. I feel like kids would just complain about that now. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're probably right.
I think I'm
It's hard-
probably
it's
right,
Hard
but
for us to say for sure, but
It
yeah.
is hard to say.
Yeah. My kids say that when they turned 16, their dad told them, unbeknownst to me, that they had 2 weeks to find a job. If they didn't find a job, he'd find one for them.
Well, there you go.
I love that.
Straight to business.
Exactly.
My mom told me that story when I turned 16, and I followed the same rule. I went and got a job at Panera. I think it was the
Gotta
same
get a
time.
job.
14 days.
Panera sneaks into the podcast once again.
I had to throw it in there.
You did. Also, another thing I would love to say is I feel like this is a bit of a Final Vibe moment because you didn't go to nursing school until you were 35. And you could have very easily made the choice to not do that. Or you could have listened to that internal dialogue that was saying, you can't do it. But it's very cool that you had people in your life that encouraged you to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And you went ahead and did that thing, even though it wasn't the normal thing to do. So, I mean, Kevin, that's kind of what we're all about, really.
Yeah.
Is encouraging people not to be afraid to do the thing, even if the thing doesn't necessarily make perfect sense on paper.
Yes.
But now your life is dramatically different because of it.
Yes.
Would you say that are you happy with those 30 years of nursing that you did?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. It was something that I'd wanted to do ever since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And nursing's hard. There's no doubt about it. But it certainly was good to me. It gave us a good life and everything. I was very, very happy with that.
So if somebody is listening right now and they're also 35 and they're not doing what they wish they had been doing, your story is proof that it's not necessarily too late. And in a blink of an eye, they can be retired from whatever that dream is and say, yeah, that was the greatest thing I've ever done. Doesn't matter how old I was. I
Yep.
shifted gears and did what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's what you did.
and what would you say? I mean, what would you say to those people?
I would just tell them to follow their dream, that it will pay off in the end. That if that's something you always wanted to do, that you can make that happen.
Yeah.
We made it happen.
Right. And I'm sure it wasn't easy.
No, it wasn't. It was, I was in school probably for a total of 4 years. You figure for a couple years, I went to community college and worked at the same time. And then after that, I quit my job to go to Jewish Hospital School of Nursing.
Yeah.
So my son says that he's the only one that he knew of that him and his mom would sit at the kitchen table and do homework together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say they couldn't complain about studying or anything because you were doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's special. That's a really great story. My mother is a nurse. And so I have a very soft spot in my heart for people who nurse because I think they're a unique breed of caring people that care on a deeper level than most.
Yeah.
So first of all, thanks for being a nurse. I'm sure you cared for a lot of people.
yes, I did. You figure I worked a medicine floor for maybe the first 9 years or so, and then went into the mothers and the babies. And there were, there were bad times, there were bad patients, there were bad days, but, it was just so rewarding.
Sure.
I'm proud to say that I was a nurse.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm known as probably the gamer of the family right now, but I'm certainly not the first gamer because I think I've heard a story about studying for nursing school that also involved, was it Mrs. Pac-Man or just Pac-Man? Am I wrong?
Pac-Man.
Pac-Man.
The
I-
OG Pac-Man.
And you put at least a couple hours into that game, right?
The kids, I remember my kids saying, "Mom, you've got to go to school."
That's amazing.
Jan, are you telling me you had a Pac-Man addiction?
Yes.
I think that's what it was.
That's hilarious. So on what console are we talking? Like the
It
big
was on the
physical?
TV.
Oh, on the TV. I
yeah.
gotcha.
It was on the TV.
What was the game system?
I have absolutely no idea.
Was it like a
did.
Super Volley X? Have you ever heard of that?
I've not. No.
No, it wasn't anything real technical.
Well, I would say that was technical even, but I mean, this is like pre-Nintendo.
Yes.
Yeah.
It would
You
have
know.
been, yeah.
You know, to be truthful, I don't even.
We'll figure out after this. We'll look at the dates and we'll figure out
Yeah.
what you had to been playing it on.
Well, here's an interesting question too. At the time, was that like the thing? Was that like the cutting edge of gaming and technology? Was that a big deal?
None of my friends did that.
See, you were on top of the curve.
Esports.
Yeah, there we go. That's it. It's genetic, Kevin.
That's
It is
right.
genetic. I mean, seriously, this was the genesis of the gaming gene
Yeah,
in your blood, Kevin.
Yeah. It all started with Pac-Man.
you can't deny it.
Gmod Jam
Fun
playing
game,
at
by the way.
Yes. And then, okay, what's another maybe story? This one I'm excited to ask because I have no idea if it maybe was a typo. My mom texted me and said I need to ask about selling dinosaurs.
Oh,
And I was like, I've never heard of the dinosaur story.
Yeah, that is intriguing. Tell us more.
well, it's just, back when I was young and had these little bitty kids, you'd do anything to make money. And I went to work for an agency, like a temporary thing. And I remember there was a big dinosaur exhibit somewhere. And so we would then sit in a tent and sell these little plastic dinosaurs. And I've had a lot of strange, different jobs, things. And even now I volunteer a lot, different things that is directing traffic in the parking garage at the art museum during
Yeah.
the art museum movie night. I mean, just many different things that have turned up in my life.
But you've always been the type of person it didn't matter what it was, whether it was a paid opportunity or a volunteer opportunity. If you had an option to meet someone new or look at something new, go to a new place, I feel like that was some of the driving factor behind that. And I think I have quite a bit of that as well. But that has been one of the most amazing things about you that I've noticed since as far back as I can remember, is that you are always doing something. And that maybe sounds like it could be a negative, but in your case, I truly do not believe that it is, because no matter how old you are now or how old you were whenever I'm talking about examples when I was in middle school or high school, and you would call and ask us if we wanted to also partake in these crazy opportunities. And I can't even, I wish I could think of a really random one that we've done in the past, but we've done a lot of different things really all over the country at this point that you've done with your grandkids. Why do you think that is? Is it because you like to meet new people, the new places?
I'm definitely a people person. That's for sure. My dad used to say to me that I could talk to a bum on the street. And I'm like, yeah. And what's wrong with that? So yeah, it's definitely about the new people. And probably I drug you kids along just because I wanted to go somewhere and do something. And you guys were too young to turn me down. So,
That's right. They
That's
were
true.
obligated to go.
Yes. Going back to when I was a kid and we lived in the city, we had alleys in the back of our house. And us kids would be out in the backyard playing, and here a bum, as we called him then, would come in off the alley, would come up, knock at the back door. My dad would have him sit on the steps, and he would make them fried egg sandwiches. They would eat their fried egg sandwich and go on their way.
That's crazy. Kevin, what would you do if a bum knocked on your back door?
I don't want to answer that question on a podcast. Like realistically, what I would do, I'd be scared.
You'd be a little spooked.
I'd be a little spooked, I should
But
say.
I'm not trying to make you sound like a bad guy, but I think it just shows how different maybe the times were.
Yeah.
You know, because Jan, did you feel threatened by the bums?
not at all.
Yeah, they were
And
just guys
you
on
figure
low.
if I was a kid playing in the backyard, it was probably 1950.
Yeah.
Where people having bad times coming off the war and everything. That they were, moving around the country and everything. But
Yeah.
I clearly remember that.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I think it speaks a lot to the benevolence of your dad because I'm sure he had, people nowadays wouldn't take the time. I don't think. I mean, there's just no chance that anybody in Columbia has made anybody a fried egg sandwich off the street in the
Yeah.
last 25 years.
If they did, they would take a picture of it and put it on Instagram.
It'd be on Instagram and it'd be like, just so fortunate and blessed to be able to serve this man today.
Of course, this is the dad that would stand outside on the street and turn the jump rope for hours for the kids in the neighborhood.
Okay, so tell us more about your dad. He seems like a really good dude. Like
Oh,
what
yeah.
what what
Oh,
was
yeah.
the character of your dad like?
Hardworking, definitely hardworking, honest, kind, funny. He would tell jokes and everything all the time. My mom, I always say that I was glad the stork dropped me with Ed and Francis. Even though we never had anything, but none of my friends ever had anything. My mom was definitely a hard worker. She was always in the house working. She was not out turning the jump rope because she was in with the wringer washer and ironing and
Yeah.
doing all of that stuff. But we had a caring family, that's for sure.
When you say you didn't have anything, do you mean to say that you guys were poor?
Looking back, yeah, I think we were probably poor. We lived, like I said, in the city. It was a 2-story house, and we had the first story. And I think they only paid like $40 a month for rent on that house. And thinking back now, I remember when we would take baths that my dad worked the evening shift, so my mom would carry buckets of water into the bathtub. So we obviously had a cold water flat.
Yeah.
I can still remember being a kid sitting at the kitchen table and hearing the radio, because remember, we didn't have a TV.
Not until second grade.
Not until second grade, correct. And only until like midnight, and then the TV would go off.
I'm convinced that nobody alive today under the age of 35 realizes how good we've got it. Because that's crazy to hear you say that. And to think that that was like in your lifetime. Like it wasn't that long ago.
Well, and we're talking to you now, and we've never experienced that.
I say that you guys, like when you get married, you want everything, and you get everything that it took us almost our whole married lives to get.
Yeah.
When you were doing this, working so hard, and your parents, seeing them do that, they did that for you.
Correct.
You did that for your own children.
Correct.
Who have then, all 3 of your children are successful and have happy families because of what they've done. Is that true? Is that why you think you've done that for the next generation?
Yes, I do. And we passed along the work ethic. That's huge. The work ethic, and to be kind to people. Treat others as you want to be treated. Yeah, I think that was a big part of making, and respect other people. My son would get in trouble at school, and we never, ever would talk about the teachers in front of him. We would never say anything bad about the school or anything in front of him. We stood united for the teachers. When he wasn't around, then we would say, yeah, they're probably picking on him. But
Sure.
I should tell a quick story. We can maybe cut this out if it doesn't fit. But we were at the school/church where all 3 went to school.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandma said, take a picture of this broom closet and send it to your uncle. So I sent it to him. He recognized it because that's where he used to have to go quite often, right?
I guess they would take his desk. He never told me this. I never knew this.
Oh, for
They
detention
would
or whatever.
take his desk and put it in the broom closet during the day, during class.
That's so funny looking back on, because you would just never get away with that nowadays.
Oh
I mean,
my gosh,
you'd
no
be
way.
you'd be in life, or you'd be in prison for life twice.
You probably would.
I mean, really though.
Yeah. And the parents would make sure of it. But now, back then, the parents probably probably deserves it if he's in the
Yeah.
closet.
Yeah. Well, another one of my perceptions of the good old days, in air quotes, is that there was just more discipline. And man, maybe I'm going to say something I shouldn't here on the podcast, but people weren't quite as soft
Correct.
And so, like, I mean, what was punishment like at school? I mean, was it just detention, or did people get beat up, or how did it work?
I think the days of the nuns coming by with the rulers
Right.
were long gone by the
Oh,
time
were
my
they?
kids
Oh, that's
came
good.
by. Yeah. But yeah, at school, they just would get detention.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's not too terrible.
Okay, so 1945, you said towards the end of World War II. Fast forward to 2020, maybe the craziest year of all time, but you might have a different opinion. You've seen the world, the country, the state go through a whole lot, ups and downs, some really, really big ups, some really, really big downs. When you sit back and look at the half dozen things we could point to right now that some would say are the worst things that have ever happened, political, pandemic, whatever, are you optimistic about the United States?
I try to be a very optimistic person, but I think right now that the country is more divided than it has ever been, than I have ever seen it. I remember after 9/11 how we were all so close. And I sometimes think, what happened to that? Where did all of that closeness go? So I try to be optimistic that once again, we'll all somehow make this work for us. But I try to be optimistic.
A lot of people think it's going to take a catastrophic event or something major that would, more major than a pandemic or a presidential candidate, something truly large to shift us back on track as a kind of one nation, we the people style mindset. Do you think that's true? Do you think it will take something of that stature?
I remember after 9/11 how everything, I call it, was kumbaya-ish. You know, everybody was together. And so, yeah, I think it will take something huge to bring us back again. I just can't imagine what it's going to take. But the United States has to come back together again. The people have to love one another again.
Has to, yeah. So that leads to my next question, because I have a theory about why we are so divided. I think a lot of people share this theory. But the question leading into it, if a genie came to you and said, I can turn the world back in the iPhone and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, none of it will ever exist. If you say so, would you say so? Would you think if you could go back 15, 20 years and redo that, would you do it?
You know, I've never thought about it, and I am joined at the hip to my cell phone. I am on it continually, and I'm on social media, and yeah, I might. If it would save our country and get people back together again.
Do you think it would?
Yeah, I would hope. Because does it all start with the kids in school, with them bullying each other and, you know, on social media? Is that what then starts everybody's hatred of one another? And, you know, you can put a simple comment. You see a simple comment on Facebook, and everybody turns around to be political, to be social, to be racial. So, yeah, maybe if all of that was gone, maybe that is what we need.
I wonder if one of the reasons social media has been such a catalyst for negativity, and good, of course, but we're talking about the negative right now, is that before we had screens to shield ourselves, we would have to say those things to people's faces with them in the room, and you'd have to deal with that fear of man. Whereas now you have a plastic protection in that you can type anything into a computer or your phone at anybody, and it's dehumanizing. You know, you're not talking to a person. You are, but you're not. And I wonder if people had never been so cowardly as to not do that in person, if we'd be here now. And all the screen warriors these days and all the yipping on Facebook, I just don't think we'd probably say those things to each other if we were all in the same room.
I totally agree with you 100%, that people would not say to your face what they type on there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad.
Now, like you said, there's also a positive side to it.
Always.
And I said we were just at lunch, and I mentioned that we will be the last, Andrew and I will be the last generation to remember life both with and without this technology.
Which is insane.
Which is,
by the way,
it's very, very insane.
Does that make us like the chosen generation?
We might seem like we're really old to people before we are like really old, because they'll be like, you didn't have the iPhone in middle school. We'll
Exactly.
Like, which might be.
You saw the world without a cell phone.
Yes. You've seen a majority of your life without a cell phone. Have there been any notable moments? I love technology, by the way, so I don't know if this fits.
We
the
know you do.
But I love it, so I got to ask these questions. Are there any notable moments over the last 10 to 15 years that stick out, whether it was meeting somebody that you haven't talked to in years? And I'm asking a person who maintained a relationship with 10 people from high school without all of this. So maybe you're not the person that, latched on and found this to be the incredible technology that it was for others, just because you maintain a lot of relationships without social media. But is there anything that sticks out?
I definitely do, because I can keep in touch with all of my cousins through social media. Kevin, maybe I'll look at a post that you put and somebody will make a comment and I'll be like, oh, I know them. I know their mom. And then eventually you get started talking to that person again. So yeah, but you guys, it is funny to think that you will be the last generation that people didn't know about cell phones.
Yeah. So much truth is going to die with us, Kevin.
It really will.
You guys have a lot on your shoulders.
I think we should just put ourselves in time capsules.
It wouldn't hurt.
For the future.
I have a bold prediction that Twitter will shut itself down and solve some of these problems themselves.
You think it's going to explode?
No, I think that the CEO, and I'm just saying this on the podcast.
Hot take coming in.
It's an official prediction.
No, it feels good though, because if you're right, you're gonna look awesome.
And we're gonna cut this out, yeah, and share just this. I think that Twitter in the next 2 years will just get shut down voluntarily by the CEO. I hope so.
But then something else will take its place.
Maybe, but if whatever takes its place is built around community and first and last names, I think it could be a better place. Right now, Twitter's just full of, random numbers and colors, and nobody's actually like themselves. So they have an ability to do whatever they want and say whatever they want. So
I've got a fun question for you, Jan. That's on topic. Are you familiar with catfishing in the non-literal sense?
No.
So catfishing is this really, and this is to your point about Twitter being full of not real people, bots, whatever, fake accounts, multiple accounts. So catfishing is basically when somebody steals photographs of a person. It's basically identity theft. And they typically would get on like a dating site and pose to be a certain person when they're not, and then sort of lead somebody along. So you're nodding now. You've heard of this. Catfishing. What a concept.
Didn't this just happen to you?
Well, it did just happen to me, so it's on my radar. And that's such an odd thing. I'm curious, on a deeper level, what do you think it is about human beings that are eager to abuse things that could have been so good and then turn them for bad things? Well, what's up with that?
Yeah, I agree. Once again, they're hiding behind another persona. They're pretending to be that pretty girl or the good looking guy, so that are they just trying to make fun of somebody? I don't get that at all. That's so totally out of my realm.
Do you think people have lower self-esteem now than they used to? And do you think social media has stripped people of some of that self-worth?
Oh, I definitely think people have lower self-esteem. I can see it in the young people that they don't have the self-esteem because people are so willing to put them down. They put their pictures on Instagram and then they're going to have 30 comments. Oh, you look fabulous. Oh, they need that somehow to boost their self-esteem because their self-esteem is low to start out with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Man, that's sad. I have not seen Social Dilemma yet, but that's hot right now. Mm-hmm. And you've seen it, Kevin.
I did.
I have heard, so correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I was listening to another podcast referencing the Social Dilemma. I guess one of the points is that people have a negativity bias. So if perhaps if there were 10 people and 9 of them gave you a positive compliment, but one of them gave you a negative critique, you would be more likely to focus on the negative comment than the positive.
Right. In the show, it's a moving moment because the girl that they show, I don't know how old kids are. Maybe she's 12.
It's the ears thing, right?
It's the ears. She
Yeah.
posts a photo of herself on Instagram, and there's the 9 comments that say, so cute. And then there's the one that says something about her ears.
Yeah, like could your ears be any bigger or something?
And then she covers up her ears
Hateful.
with her hair. But for me, as a male, I cannot even begin to imagine how difficult life was for the females when we were in school, all of us, that before really all the technology, the social media. It seemed like a pretty cutthroat world sometimes to be a teenage girl. And I cannot even fathom what it's like now when you have likes in that whole, like you can actually,
The whole
the whole system.
system.
And you can put numbers to how, quote, pretty you are, whatever it is. And like you can actually see 30 people like, that's pretty low for compared. And I don't understand. I think there's not a lot of positivity that can come from that.
Jan, what do you think?
In the long term.
What's up with it? Because like what's interesting to me is that we're so familiar with this idea of likes. So like you get on Facebook, you can like stuff. If you get on Instagram, you can double tap for the heart icon. You can like stuff on Twitter. And that's all just like people either approving you or not. Do you think that's good for people?
Definitely not.
This can't be good for people, right?
It could not be good for people at all. Everything's not always going to be bright and shiny and everything.
Yeah.
And, I think that's what the kids think now. And is that why the teenage suicide rate's so high? Because of the negative things, they're used to positivity.
It makes me wonder how cool it would be to have a social media where you could opt to turn that off. Like if you could just post things, right, but like disable the like feature. Just everything's neutral. Would that be cool or would that be weird?
I dig it. I'm telling you, and we make FinalVibe a social media, and it is the alternative. And it's going to just be a happy place where everybody just achieves their goals. And
it's hard too because I imagine that like when Instagram created that feature or whoever was the first,
Yeah.
not to credit Instagram, it's supposed to be just a way for people to like affirm you. And you would think on the surface that would be a good thing. Like you post a picture of you and your dog in the park and people are like, I like that. That's cool. But now it's become like this contest. And if you don't get to a certain number, you're worth less. Or only getting to a certain number makes you worth whatever you perceive to be enough.
Mhm.
So it's weird how like I can totally see how the designers would have thought this will just be a normal thing. And now it's become terrible somehow.
Yeah.
Anyway, social media tangent.
And how's that going to get made better again? What's going to happen?
I
You
don't
guys are young. You know this. That's got to change.
Yeah, I that's my favorite thing to think about and talk about is what the future of all of this looks like. And I wonder if, as this gets worse and worse, if Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, Instagram CEO, or Jeff Bezos or Jack Dorsey from Twitter, there's a chance in the next couple of years that they realize the history books are going to look at them, not quite Hitler level, obviously, but they might be in the ballpark with some of history's worst people. Not necessarily because they built these things to do this, but because Mark Zuckerberg, 10 years later, continues to go into work every day and to pump this stuff out as much as he can.
Fuel the machine.
Just fuel the machine. And I have a feel that's why I think that Twitter will get shut down, because Jack Dorsey seems to be one of the meditating types in the mountains. I think it's going to hit him first, that he might historically be one of the most infamous people that's ever walked Earth, because he's already had an impact on Earth that we could not even imagine because of the internet. So that's my theory, is that they will realize this and they will make dramatic changes, hopefully, to fix it, which might just be shutting it down. Or like I said, you just make everybody use their first name and their last name and their photo, and I bet that clears it up too pretty quick.
We shall see.
We shall see.
I think what's interesting, one more point, is that we can now no longer go back. We can never go back to a time without social media. We know that even if we were to delete it now, we would have known that it was a thing. Everyone will remember this. It will never not exist. It's just how will it exist moving forward.
Yeah.
because people won't forget.
They won't forget. I think also the people working for these companies, much like you said, you're proud to be a nurse. It's a little different now, but when we look at pretty much every profession up until like before the 90s, before the internet, most people worked for the same company for a majority of their career.
Yeah.
And they were proud, GM or whatever it would be that they worked for that company. I wonder if some of the people who work for Facebook and Twitter are also going to start realizing that this isn't going to look good, to their grandkids. When it's like, hey, grandpa worked at Facebook. Like, whoa, the Facebook that screwed up the entire world? Like, yeah. So I don't know. I think that might change too. And some of those people might make positive changes on the platforms.
I like it.
I didn't expect to be talking this much about social media on the episode. My grandma's fun.
No, it's awesome. I mean,
I think it's awesome
yeah, no,
too.
it's good.
What you guys are bringing up, I totally agree. And I think that these smart people who started this saw that they are the ones who can fix it.
Well, something that I always keep in mind is so it's easy to look and read back in the history books and text and see the faces and see the people and see like these huge mistakes that were made. And you read it and you're like, how did they do that? Like, how were they so dense? How did they not see that that was terrible? I think social media is going to be one of those things where we read about in the textbooks and our kids or our grandkids are going to be like, wait, you guys were on Facebook and like you were doing that whole thing, and we're gonna be like, yeah, but like at the time it was just normal, and it makes me want to give grace to all the people from former generations that, for example, an easy one, smoking. We look back and we're like, oh, how could you smoke? I mean, it's so clearly terrible for you. But everyone who smoked before they had the knowledge that it was terrible for your health, it was normal, and maybe it was even cool. We shall see. Time will tell.
That's
Time
the best
will
part.
tell.
Time will
Ominous. ... To be continued.
Yep.
In the year 2030.
Still on social media, Andrew and I have talked a lot about with just this podcast or Instagram and Twitter, whatever it is. We like to look at it as a cool way, or vlogs as well that we've started. It's a cool way for us to document our lives. And we think about 30 years from now when our children can then watch this and listen to this interview where Dad interviewed his grandma. And it's like super cool that we're able to do that. And that made me think about your ability to look back on history. It's something we've talked about, is just documenting your own life so that you can have it for the future generations. How much history do you have of the previous generations from your family?
I have a cousin who does genealogy, and I've kind of tried to keep track of where we came from. How did we get here from Germany? As far as pictures of my mom and dad, I've got some wedding pictures. I'll bet you when I actually think about it, I'll bet I don't have 10 pictures because we never had a camera. So a pictorial history, we do not have that.
So up until this moment in history, legacy really was the people that you impacted 100%, which is wild to think about.
That's very true.
Because when it was lights out, it was lights out.
Yeah.
Unless you were phenomenally famous or influential.
Yeah, you lived only as long as the last memory.
Right.
Wow, crazy.
Yep.
Wow.
Quickly forgotten.
Yeah. Which kind of leads into another topic that I definitely want to talk about, but I'm not excited to talk about it, but I want to get your thoughts on it. And
I'm excited, just so you know, Kevin.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Okay, you go ahead.
With the topics of funerals and death and loss, obviously this podcast is about legacy and life and how we are remembered. And as a person who's 75 years old, you have been to a lot of funerals. Some
Yes.
people extremely close to you, your husband, your granddaughter, and many, many friends and acquaintances and people you've met over the decades. So talk to us about what that's like to see kind of the culmination of people's lives at these events, the celebratory events, and how that makes you think about legacy.
Boy,
That's a big one.
that's a big one. In our family, when we were kids, we were always taken to funerals because we all went everywhere together. So we spent 2 days at the funeral home. I think when I go to a funeral, I'm just so overwhelmed with memories of that person, which like you say, what did you just say, that our legacy is only a memory away? Or
Our legacy before technology, especially, was only as long as our
our last
last
memory.
memory. Yeah.
Correct. But yeah, you don't forget about the person, that's for sure. But but then they're kept alive in stories. We talk about the people and keep them alive that way, and keep them alive for the younger generation. When like when I tell stories about my dad with the eggs on the back porch, that's through stories of their life. They're kept alive.
And he had no idea, by the way, when he did that somebody in their car right now, driving to work, listening to this podcast
In 2020.
in 2020 has now been impacted by that. That's amazing to think about.
I mean, that's legacy, though, at its finest.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
We
it
always,
really is.
I think too often we overhype the big stuff in life, but we're sitting here celebrating your dad for the kindness in his heart to feed a homeless person an egg sandwich. I mean, that means way more than anything you could ever do in business,
I think too that kindness is, now we're inundated with videos of people videoing tragic things that are going on. And I certainly do not want to be known for, wow, look at that cool video grandma took. I want to be known as, wow, look at it on that video at grandma rushing out there and taking care of that person. I'm not going to run into a burning car or anything, but if somebody's on the ground and they need help, that's where I want to be. I don't want to be behind the video camera.
right? Just for the sake of monetizing a viral video on YouTube.
Right.
It's sad, though. You think about it. I mean, a lot of people are thinking that, something crazy happens and they're like, oh my gosh, how much value this is on the internet? It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's sad. I think it's sad.
It is sad.
My opinion.
I totally agree. I had no idea they were doing it to make money.
Yeah, well, you can, yeah. Jen, I would be curious. Do you have any regrets?
You do. You think back more to when you were young, the goofy things you do. But like I tell my kids, choices that you made, decisions that you made those with the resources that were available to you at that time. With the money that was available, the education, the circumstances. So now you can say, man, why did I do that? But at the time, you can't look back. You can't look back. You move forward. It doesn't do any good to look back. You can't change that. And you had a reason for doing what you did at that time.
I recently heard, and I'm sure I'm sure I'm late to the party, but I heard this quote that all behavior makes sense in its context at the given time. So regret it's always a hard question because, we can't always say we wouldn't be where we are now without the past having been exactly as it was. And yet I think all of us have some things we regret, and not to say that we want to change the present because of the past, but if we could do it all over again, maybe we would change it. But it's interesting that you say it that way, because the past is the past and you can't change the past. Do you think we should learn from the past?
Oh, without a doubt. And you figure I learned from the past. I went ahead and did my dream. You did. Yeah. But yeah, you definitely can learn from it, but you can't change it. That's just wasting time.
Another question I have is, I think people are unhappier than I've ever seen them in general. And I know we touched on this earlier, so I don't want to rehash that. But I find that when I talk to people who are older than I am, they seem a lot more content and they seem a lot happier, honestly. And maybe happier is even cheap, but they seem joyful, usually. I mean, there's always the occasional senile old man, the grumpy guy. But in general, what kind of advice would you give to young people who are unhappy? What would you say? Because we have more than we've ever had. And I would be, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would be tempted to think that you might think you have so much and yet you're not happy. Why?
Don't you think that they're unhappy because they have so much? That they think that things can buy happiness? And happiness, we all know, comes from within. That it's not, having the new car, having the best clothes, the expensive purses. It comes from within.
Yeah.
So they have to get past that somehow and just be happy with what you have.
Be happy with what you have.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
What do you think the key is to the happiness that you have and the optimism, the go-getting attitude? You always, to this day, are looking for opportunities to volunteer, for friends to hang out with, trips to go on, grandkids to bring to places. Where does that come from?
Happiness has to come from within. And I think that, like I said, I was happy being born to Ed and Francis. I didn't need to be born to somebody who was real expensive, had a whole lot of money and everything. I've always been happy with what I've had and always looking for new opportunities, new things to do to make us happy, to bring happiness. And a lot of times happiness is just making somebody else happy. If you can do that, if every day you can make somebody else happy, then you've done your job for that day.
Resort to selflessness when maybe you can't find it on your own,
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
It is interesting, regardless of what anybody listening believes about the world or how it all TikToks, it is interesting that doing a kind act for somebody else never really feels wrong. It's not like you do something nice for somebody and then you feel bad about that. There's something that brings an inherent sort of natural joy to people when you give something to someone else, whether it's your time, your energy, maybe a gift of service or whatever. I think that's interesting that there seems to be something inherently benevolent about doing a kind thing for someone else.
And it doesn't have to be a big thing. When you're going into the gas station to get your soda or your morning coffee, open the door for somebody and smile at them.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised and that's a good way then to start out your day. What better way than to start your day with a smile?
Yeah. Well, and one thing we've talked about on former episodes is I've become more aware of customer service when it's really good, because it seems to have gotten so bad at times. But just a quick story. The other night, my wife and I were at the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A, and we got there at 9:55, and they close at 10 p.m. And I sort of hate to be that guy who's rolling up at 9:55, because I understand they're probably trying to shut it down. But we roll up, and the friendliest lady gets on the intercom, and she says, "Hi, welcome to Chick-fil-A. What can I get you guys?" And I was like, I just want a grilled chicken sandwich and a medium mac and cheese, because that's our little duo order. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, that's like my favorite order on the menu. I think I had that exact order for lunch. I'm so glad that you're picking that." And I was like, "Wow, thanks. I'm excited about it too." And then she said something else nice, but I was just like buzzing on the idea that anybody was being nice to me at a drive-thru at 9:55, 5 minutes before closing. And we went up and we pulled through the line, and everyone was super smiley. And I was like buzzing on life after a Chick-fil-A experience. So I actually need to do this, but I haven't gotten on Twitter yet. I need to get on Twitter and thank Misty from the Jefferson City location for just being a kind person to me when she didn't have to be. She could have been normal or worse. So Anyway, to speak to your point, sometimes the smallest things are the most meaningful things.
Okay, so the last of the serious questions, I want you to say what you would say, because you have gone back and you've so kindly listened to some of the other FinalVibe podcast episodes. And how did you phrase the legacy question?
How do you want, when you are laying there with the rosary between your fingers, what do you want people to say about you? So in other words, when you're in the funeral home.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're belly up.
Yeah, that's it.
With the fancy makeup and the what's that nasty stuff they pump through your body so you look like a human? Isn't that crazy, by the way?
I forget about that. Yeah.
They pump you full of
Formaldehyde.
Yes.
Woof. Okay, sorry. Make it meaningful. Make it meaningful.
Put the rosary between your fingers.
That's right.
Okay, but yes, that question to you, either how do you want to be remembered? What do you want people to say about you? More importantly, what does legacy mean to you? What is your final vibe?
Boy, my final vibe is everything we've been talking about. That is what I want. I want people to say, she was really a nice person. She was kind. Remember when she did this? Or, that's what I want. I just want to be remembered as being a nice person and that I look good.
Amazing.
I love it.
I'm here for two things: kindness and aesthetics.
Yeah. Amazing.
One of my friends said that that's what her mom always wants. She wants people to say, boy, she looks good.
It's not a bad one.
No, it's not a bad. I think it's a good number 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
You might get a couple raised eyebrows if it's number 1 all the time, but solid number 2.
I've known you for a good portion of my life, just about, I would say, most of the seconds I've been alive. People are going to say that for sure. And I think when I think about legacy now, I cannot stop thinking about this fried egg sandwich example because it's so crazy to me that he did it at a, but that's where we are now with your 3 children and then us sitting around a table doing this sort of thing, talking about legacy now. And it literally is 100% because of you. That's amazing to think about. So I appreciate you. Before we shift gears to the fun part of the interview, sitting down with us for this interview, I know it wasn't necessarily your favorite part of the day, I don't think.
I think it was.
But she was nervous.
She's happy. She's smiling. Look at her.
Ecstatic. Part 2. When we'll do part 2 next weekend.
Oh, no.
No, I'm just kidding. But we will shift gears now to Andrew's favorite part. We will get to know you a little more and pretty rapidly. We have some time. And you are typically, don't take this the wrong way. Are you our oldest guest that we've had, I think?
Of anybody, you could
so.
add a few of your guests together, their ages, and I'd be older than them.
So anyway, we have an ability to ask some cool questions, I think, and get some cool answers. I have one to start, if you're okay.
Kevin, smash it.
You've traveled all over the world.
Yes.
If I gave you a voucher to go to one of those places again because it was that good, where would you go?
I love Venice. Absolutely love it. I guess because I'm a water person and just ended up there a couple years ago on a cruise that started out one of the clipper ships, which is just fantastic. Started out over by Rome and came around the bottom of Italy, hit a little bit of Greece, and ended up in Venice. It was that I really like Venice, but I've never been to Switzerland. And that is definitely where I want to go.
Switzerland seems like a party.
I bet it would be a party.
Switzerland has that reputation for being like the most neutral place of all time, right?
I think so.
For their stance in the war. Good for them. How do you feel about bidets? Ever used one? Big fan, little fan?
I have used them. My generation were like, what are we supposed to do with that?
I've never used one. I'm terrified. Scared to death.
Amazon has made them very popular.
Really?
Yeah, they kind of were a little nichey a couple years ago, and then Amazon started selling them for like $20, and then I think people just slowly got on board.
They gave them public access. $20. Most people have $20.
Most people have $20.
Yeah, you know.
Our good friend Cole Crawford bought one. Told me I should buy one. I bought one.
Oh wow!
I have one.
You
upstairs.
have one?
I have one upstairs.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I'm the one out of the loop here.
Yeah, but you can. I mean, you could take pause the podcast for 2 minutes.
Couldn't be less interested. Couldn't be less interested.
Of course, on the opposite of the bidet, I've also been like in France where you go into a bathroom and there's a hole in the floor and like footsteps are painted on the floor so you know where to put your feet to position yourself properly over the hole in the floor.
No.
Lovely. Lovely. Love that.
Love that.
I love that. I love that. Jan, if you could eat out for a nice meal, like a really treat yourself, like luxury dining, what's the main course? And are you a dessert gal? And are you a wine gal?
As I give him the eyebrow, of course I'm a dessert gal.
Okay, well.
I would, steak It's got to be steak.
Okay, lovely.
Because I live in St. Louis. We get fantastic pasta all the time, which is why I never get it on vacation. It's got to be steak. Key moles somewhere with a fantastic view. I am not a wine person. I'm sorry. I know you look so grown up when you drink wine, but
Oh, it's no hard feelings.
I guess I'm just not there yet.
She prefers Dale's Pale Ale. Is that what I? No, I'm kidding.
A Sprite is my drug of choice.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. I think of all the diet sodas, Diet Sprite is king.
I think so. I mean, obviously, I have to say Diet Coke, but Diet Sprite for the white sodas, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin, your turn.
What was your first car that you bought?
Boy, like when I got married, I didn't have a car. So whatever Dennis and I bought, it kind of seems to me it was a 1969 Ford, I do believe.
Oh, wow.
Nice. What
Yeah.
color was it?
Maybe it was yellow. And I believe it had a vinyl top.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
That was high class.
I love that. That's really good. I've got one. Are there any inventions that you didn't expect to see come to fruition? For example, have there been any things that you've seen in your later years that you thought, wow, I never saw that one coming? So, for example, one thing that interests me is like the transition from like a Walkman CD player to a big iPod, to a little iPod, to a phone, to AirPods. Because I have this theory that we're going to look back and laugh at corded headphones. Like the fact that
Oh,
we're in a studio
yeah.
right now with corded, I think we're going to look back and laugh at that. But I could be wrong. That's one of my personal predictions. I don't know we'll ever be able to get a better signal than a direct signal. And that's going to be a hard wire. I don't know that wireless can ever, maybe this is so dumb for me to say and I'll laugh at this in 50 years.
Yeah, Apple's like,
Yeah.
go ahead and say it.
Say it. I just don't know that wireless will ever have the direct nature of a physical cord, but we shall see.
It should not. It doesn't
It
make any
shouldn't.
sense.
Doesn't
for
make
it.
sense. It is one of those things where it's like, that shouldn't be able to happen. But then again, TV really freaks me out when I think about images on the screen.
Yeah.
Pretty weird.
I do remember one time we bought a new big television and they gave us a little portable TV that had an antenna. We were so amazed by that.
Oh, yeah.
And it never worked good. So
It was probably portable in the
Oh,
sense
it was
that it was
tiny.
like movable, but it wasn't like sleek.
it was the size of my first cell phone, probably.
Do you think it's crazy that people watch Netflix while they drive?
Oh, without it, yes.
That
Definitely.
is kind of wild.
Do you still play Pokemon?
No.
Okay. Are there any stats that I should ask? How many did you catch
No,
throughout
I
your
just
career?
know like I got to level 38, I think.
Okay.
On which Pokemon?
On the what's it called? Pokemon Go?
Yeah.
The app.
Oh, the app.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Do you have a favorite Pokemon?
No.
You love
I
them
can't.
all.
Pikachu, maybe.
Oh,
I
he's a
don't
cute
know.
little guy.
I got too busy and couldn't play Pokemon anymore.
Now, did you know that Pikachu and Jigglypuff were kind of a thing?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like in
Yeah.
the show?
I mean, it was always kind of known that Jigglypuff had a big crush on Pikachu, but that's also confusing though because it's not like there's just one. You know?
Right. Yeah.
You know.
So is
I
it
feel like
just-
it was a little bit of a hole in the plot line, but
And they
Fun.
almost got away with it, but you're not going to let them
fun nonetheless.
bring it up.
Yeah. Jan, how much protein do you think you eat per day?
I'm ready for this question.
Yeah, you're strapped up. Talk to me.
I eat as much protein as is in the leftovers that my kids give me.
Oh, there you go.
And
Use your resources,
A
folks.
couple years ago, I moved by my son, who is an excellent cook, which
Ooh.
also led into my decision to move into his neighborhood.
Smart woman.
So, yeah. And how much protein's in ice cream? So there we go.
You know what? There's a decent amount of protein in ice cream,
Then I'm-
folks, because it's from milk.
Yeah.
See,
what else
then
do you
I'm
need?
good.
Jan, did
It's
you
just
know
good.
that? Did you know that there's sort of a new age ice cream out there called Halo Top, and it has 20 grams of protein per pint.
I'll have to research that.
You might have to do that. You might have to do that. Do you have any particularly grotesque stories from being a nurse,
Oh, I know.
or
Kevin?
maybe just comical?
What's Kevin gonna?
Well, you're not going to want to say this one. It's grotesque. When you told me once about when you were in school, they brought you to Barnes, and I think you had to look at was it like the STDs? Or
Oh,
was it-
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you are correct.
Ooh, this is what I
I-
wanted. This is good content.
I did not eat my lunch that day.
Ugh.
Probably didn't even eat my dinner.
Yeah.
I did for a while. I worked at an inner city hospital. One day while I was in the room, an FBI agent came in, announced himself, and said that he was arresting the father of the baby. That was kind of scary.
Scary, but pretty sweet. I mean, it's kind of like you were in an episode of CSI there for a second.
Yeah. Then one day, we had a stabbing in the hallway.
Sweet. I mean, well, was everybody okay?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
They were okay. The grandparents were not happy with I probably shouldn't be saying this.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, though. I probably wouldn't be pumped either.
Yeah.
Do you have any current Hollywood crushes? And more specifically, yeah, I know. More specifically, thoughts on which one's more of a hunk? Clint Eastwood, Harrison Ford, or George Clooney?
George Clooney.
Yeah, I know.
Hands down.
Yep. It's got to be George.
I do, and it's strictly, I think, because of his music. I love Kenny Chesney.
Oh.
Because I've been to St. John where he had a home. I don't know if he's rebuilt since the hurricane hit. But that was just, when you go in the bars there, they're playing his music all the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, love Kenny Chesney.
Kenny
music.
Chesney.
Yep.
Great. Kevin, what do you got? Let's give Jan a few more.
What do you love about the Lake of the Ozarks?
Wow. Everything.
I guess I should say that you have and have had a home there since the late 80s.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I have. I'm not down there anymore now, so I'm kind of not into the craziness that is going on now. Used to love just being out in the boat when there weren't any wakes back then, and you would see the moon shining down on the water. I mean, it was just beautiful. Loved raising all you kids there. We were just back in our little cove and kind of doing our thing and having bonfires and swimming and just having a good time. I'm glad that I was at the lake when it was like that instead of all the...
It has seen quite a boom in the last 15 years.
Yeah, and especially this year.
Yeah.
It's hit a huge boom this year. But, yeah, it is. It was a wonderful place to raise the grandkids, that's for sure.
Sounds like fun memories.
Oh, yeah.
Jan, what's your training split like right now? What's your exercise regimen?
Oh, he asks this as my family is very involved with St. Jude. Had a granddaughter that was treated there and unfortunately did not make it. And that was in 2004. And since then, my daughter and her husband started a team to raise money for St. Jude, Anna's Flying Pigs. And every year we go to St. Jude and I walk the half marathon for many years.
Yeah.
And now I'm walking the 10K. But so that's where I walk, I bike ride, and I'm training. I've decided this year it's virtual, so I'm going to once again try to walk the half marathon and just do it at my own pace and not try to rush or anything.
Perfect. Yeah. What's the hurry?
Yeah.
Take it at your own pace.
I bike ride all the time, but as far as other than that, that's it.
No, that's awesome. And I want to celebrate that about you because people make excuses all the time and the body doesn't hold up the way it was when it was 20 forever. So good for you for making time for exercise when you wouldn't necessarily have to. So I applaud that in you, Jan.
It is so important to keep moving.
Keep moving.
What's the saying? If you don't use it, you lose it.
That's right.
And
You don't want to lose your body or your mobility.
It's harder to get off and on that bicycle, and it's harder to go up those hills. But
Yeah.
I keep thinking, you know what? at least I'm still doing it. I might be really slow, but at least I'm still making those hills at Forest Park and everything.
Right.
So
The only reason I like biking today, I would have to attribute back from when we used to ride, but also the goal with the 100-mile ride is that Grandma can meet me and we do the last 10, 15, 20 miles together.
So awesome.
That'd be dope.
So awesome. I hope to be there with a camera.
Yeah, we're going to figure it out. It's got to
Yep.
be it's going to have to be in October now,
Yep.
but yeah.
And if you're listening for the first time, welcome to episode 17. Kevin is in the midst of tackling a 100-mile bike ride.
Yes, it's supposed to happen in September, but then my job picked up. So we're going to make it happen soon, though, before it snows.
Sounds like a big fat excuse, Kevin, but we'll let it
is a
slide
big-
this once.
It is a big fat excuse, but it'll happen soon.
October's the month. Jan, what's your favorite fast food restaurant? We got a lot of Chick-fil-A's. Shake it up.
Unless
You
it's
ready for
Chick-fil-A. I
this?
hope it's
Unless it's Chick-fil-A.
White Castle.
Oh, the
You know,
sliders?
Yes, without a doubt.
Those are
Just the
naughty, and you know it.
plain- Just the plain slider, and then I put ketchup on them. Oh, just
Wow. Well, the Super Bowl party that Uncle Matt used to host, somebody always brought the Crave case with like 45 sliders.
Correct.
Was that you?
No,
Oh, okay.
it was another mother-in-law.
Okay. Oh, that's amazing.
Jan, in a moment of desperation, how many sliders do you think you could smash in one sitting?
And not live to regret it.
I'm not interested in any kind of regrets.
5.
Five?
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, that's big.
Did you know that Andrew and I are going to try to eat 10,000 calories in one day?
Oh, I heard that.
Yeah.
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 Maybe we.
Actually,
White Castle probably isn't a good one. You'd probably have to put away a lot.
it's probably not a great one because you might die.
Right.
I'm totally kidding. I'm sure White Castle's a great place. Kevin, I'm kind of actually curious. I think we should preview this on the podcast to get people's feedback.
Okay.
Can we pitch this
Oh, yeah,
5
let's
fast
do it.
food joint 10,000 calorie challenge? So to be clear, the original idea, which still stands, is to do 5 sort of well-known, famous, well-liked local Columbia eateries. And we've talked about which ones those might be. Another option, though, could be to do 5 fast food joints for 10,000 calories. So I pitched this to you the other night over a text message. You thought, I just might be able to do that. We've got, starting out, Dunkin' Donuts, sausage, egg, and cheese on croissant, bacon, egg, and cheese on croissant, and 3 donuts of choice. Jan, you think you could do that? Talking 2 breakfast Sammys and 3 donuts.
I would give it a good try.
I like that. I'm just looking for effort. Kevin, that's 2,100 calories.
Easy. I honestly,
Easy.
I think that one is doable.
It's a big fat joke.
legitimate
It's a
doable.
big fat joke.
It's a big fat joke.
Second stop is going to be McDonald's. This one I think is going to be the gnarliest one.
Okay.
2 Big Macs, McChicken, large fries, 2 hot apple pies, and a cinnamon melt.
The 2 Big Macs is a lot. I don't know why that seems doable too, but it does.
Everything in context, right? It's one thing to say, yeah, I'm going to do this for dinner.
right.
It's another
That's
thing
the-
to say that I'm going to do this after that Dunkin'
after
Donuts
those 3
expedition.
donuts. Yeah.
Moving on, Chick-fil-A number 3. 2 original chicken sandwiches, 1 medium mac and cheese, 2 chocolate chip cookies. That's child's play, I
Yeah.
think.
Right. Did you change anything from? That's a normal order
Yes,
Just
exactly
up to-
what I get every day.
every day.
Every there.
Those 2 cookies.
$16.49. Meal number 4, Papa John's, keeping it really simple. 1 extra large pepperoni pizza with original crust.
I think that's the hardest.
You think you could do that, Jan? Full pepperoni pizza, extra
I
large?
think you two are dreaming.
Yeah,
I might be.
I'm wondering now if this is not even remotely possible.
Beg your pardon?
I mean, I'm gonna give you a full effort.
Yeah, I expect a full effort. That is 3,400 calories all by itself.
Did you put the price for all of these?
No,
Okay.
made the price up.
Oh, okay.
It's not real. And then finally, to end the day, Dairy Queen, a beloved favorite in our relationship, Kevin. You and I go back a long time with Dairy Queen.
We do inside jokes about Dairy Queen.
And we actually, all we have to do here is 1 large chocolate chip cookie dough blizzard for 1,340 calories.
That's all.
That's all you got to do. Originally, I did have a double cheeseburger in there, but the full day of calories actually comes to 12,430, which feels aggressive for a first push.
Yeah, it does. It sure does.
So
This feels so much better
that's the fast food update.
without that double.
Jan, what do you think? Do you think we have it in us?
I was thinking maybe start like with a 5,000 calorie day.
Sure.
Although that'd be easy
Sure,
for you
fair enough.
guys.
I think so. I probably yeah.
Yeah.
I think 5,000 is easy. 10,000 is. I mean, man. At first,
Madness.
what time does Dunkin' Donuts open?
So I was thinking, I do have the timestamps on here. I'm thinking 7:30, 10:30, 2:30, 6:30, 10:30.
That sounds
That's a full
good.
day of eating.
Yeah.
The last time I did a 10,000 calorie challenge, I started at like 9:30 a.m. A little late. Wasted some precious hours. About 9, to be honest. Yeah.
Give or take.
Give or take about 9 hours. So anyway, that's our little update on food. Do you think we should let Jan go?
I think we should.
She's been a peach of a guest.
She has been. This has been fantastic. I really do appreciate you hanging out with us for a couple hours, officially putting some of your life and some of your legacy in audio format for the rest of the world to listen to forever. I really do appreciate it. And all of the other amazing things that you have done. Again, it sounds silly to say, but I'm not here without you. And more so than just in the fact that my mother is your daughter, but more so in that you've taught me more than I can ever say. So I appreciate you. I'd like to say that every time I see a person wearing a number 1 grandma shirt, I think they're lying to themselves because
That's right.
they're number 2 at best.
They're just playing games.
They're just
my.
playing
Number
games.
2 at best.
And I let them know that. No, I don't. I'm just kidding. But I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I have enjoyed this. You know, I was worried to death about this, but I really have enjoyed it very
You've been
much.
nothing less than a star.
Thank you.
Kevin, why don't you give us one of your famous outros? Why don't you send people into their Tuesday morning with a smile on their face and a vibe in their hearts?
Let's do a smile on their face and a vibe in their hearts. I like that. Let's set it up. All right, folks, don't forget, if you are looking to change your life and focus more on your own legacy, a FinalVibe membership provides you with immediate access to a community of people doing just that, as well as other exclusive content. And Andrew and I are working hard behind the scenes to make FinalVibe bigger and better than ever before, and we're excited to release some more information on that in the near future.
Maybe some sneaky things up our sleeves.
Today's episode was produced by co-host Andrew White. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to future episodes and tell one other person about us. We appreciate all the support that we've received so far. Drop us 5 stars on iTunes if you can. FinalVibe is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FinalVibe, and you can check out some apparel and coffee. FinalVibe Coffee Blend at finalvibe.com. Enjoy the rest of your week. We will see you back here next Tuesday for a solo episode, I believe.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Solo episode next week.
Come hang
of
out
the
with
FinalVibe
Kevin and me.
Podcast. Come hang out. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.
Have a phenomenal Tuesday, everyone. We did it.
Boom.
How we doing? How we feeling? Welcome to another episode of the FinalVibe podcast.